More and more often we hear that someone is electrohypersensitive. What is it all about? Why is someone considered electrohypersensitive? And what could this mean for all of us? When someone can see well, he is considered to have good eyesight. When someone can hear well, he is considered to have good hearing. However, when someone feels the presence of electromagnetic fields before the other, then the person is stigmatized and a medical diagnosis is sought to classify the symptoms that person has. The word electrohypersensitive is a compound of three words: electro, hyper, and sensitive. The word electro refers to electricity or electrical phenomena. The word hyper comes as a prefix when you want to emphasize or amplify the term that follows. The term sensitive is somewhat more complex and has multiple meanings. It basically represents the ability to recognize stimuli. Also, it describes a person who is very sensitive, delicate, and who reacts very quickly even to small changes in his physical and sensory environment. And finally, electrohypersensitivity means increased sensitivity to electricity and electrical phenomena. To shed some light on the concept of electrohypersensitivity, let's start from the very essence of the matter. It is known that in nature we have electrically charged particles. Such particles create electric fields in the surrounding space, due to which there are interaction and the appearance of forces occur, and as a result, various effects can also occur in the end. When a body is electrically charged, it affects the environment. In this case, we have the effect of polarizing another body and creating an attractive force between these two bodies. When a direct electric current flows through a conductor, a magnetic field is created around the conductor. If it is alternating electric current, then electromagnetic waves are generated and an electromagnetic field is created. Finally, if the conductor is in an electromagnetic field, then an electric voltage appears at its ends. Electromagnetic waves spread into space at the speed of light. They are determined by frequency, i.e. wavelength. The higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength. Electromagnetic fields can be measured. Here we see two handheld instruments for measuring electromagnetic fields. It is useful to know which values were measured in different environments, in the forest, in the suburbs, and in the city itself. Our body is made up of trillions of cells. Cells make up tissue, tissues make up organs, organs make up the organism, and the organism is imbued with the consciousness. Various processes take place in the cells, and on the cell walls there are electrically charged particles that are in a certain electrical balance and create appropriate electrical potentials. These potentials can be measured. In medicine, also calcium ions and voltage-gated calcium channels are often mentioned in the context of electromagnetic radiation. In a word, we see how much the balance of metabolism and thus our health depends on the electrical values that govern the processes in our body. A specific type of cell makes up a nerve fiber. During the transmission of stimuli, electrical signals propagate through the nerve fiber, the so-called action potentials. How the action potential changes over time after the stimulus can be seen in this drawing. Now we come to the point that signals from the environment can affect the electrical signals in our body by increasing or decreasing their value and thereby changing the waveform. In the context of sensitivity, it is interesting to hear what academician Vladimir Par, a physician, has to say about it. He says that the human brain is a fantastically complicated electromagnetic system with billions of transitory electrical currents that emit and absorb electromagnetic disturbances, and he points out that the sensitivity threshold is individual. Here we see a voltage curve that represents the electrical signal of the heart, the so-called electrocardiogram. When an electromagnetic signal appears in the environment, it affects body signals. Brain work takes place with the presence of brain waves. The frequency of brain waves is related to the state of consciousness. If a strong enough signal appears in the environment, then it can cause problems even in a healthy person. Sleep and dreams are also characterized by certain waves. Sleep has its own stages that alternate during sleep, and electromagnetic signals from the environment can affect the rhythm and quality of sleep. Here is another example. Stimuli from the environment stimulate our senses. Nerve fibers transmit information to the brain where an image of what is happening in the environment is created. However, if a foreign electromagnetic field penetrates the nerves, the signals will interfere, which will disrupt the image created in the brain. One step further, if a foreign electromagnetic field affects the brain, it can also distort the image as it should be, and it can also cause completely new effects in our brain, i.e. our consciousness. According to official medical statistics, there are more and more people who report unusual health disorders, and their number grows proportionally with the increase in the amount of electromagnetic radiation. Nature has its own electromagnetic fields. We are adapted to them and our lives depend on them. However, since man found a way to create and use artificial electromagnetic fields, their sum has grown exponentially, and today the level of radiation intensity has been reached at about 10 to the power of 18 times higher than the original natural one. With the increase in artificial electromagnetic radiation, there are people who have certain sensations on their body and say that something is bothering them, and they attribute that something to electromagnetic radiation. As time passes and the intensity of electromagnetic radiation increases, there are more and more such people, and the problems are getting bigger. A program on the subject of electrohypersensitivity was broadcast on Croatian radio and television. Mr. Ivan Čuljak spoke about his health problems related to artificial electromagnetic radiation.
Ja sam se probudio 14. svibnja 2012. sa vrlo jakim bolom u glavi i nesnosnim metalnim zujanjem, koje je apsolutno mi nije omogućilo da ponovo zaspem. Recimo, nisam mogao zaspati i onda sam otišao na hitnu. Oni nisu znali šta napraviti sa mnom, dali su mi ta sredstva za ublažavanje bola. Jedan dan je bilo bolje, jedan gore. Uglavnom, pojavio se problem umora zbog nespavanja, problem takozvani brain fog. Godinu dana kasnije otišao sam kod doktora Davida Blacka, koji je bio doktor medicine rada. Znači, na verbalnoj bazi i sa nalazima koje sam imao od hitne, on je napravio zaključak da sam ja electrohypersensitivan. Ja sam 2016. otišao kod drugog doktora, doktor Mike Godfrey u Taurangi.
I taj je novozelandski doktor zaključio da gospodin Čuljak pati od sindroma elektrohipersenzibilnosti, te mu je preporučio da se preseli u ruralno područje daleko od bilo kakvih izvora elektromagnetskih polja.
Nažalost, to nije bilo moguće jer ja sam imao 2 djece koji su morali ići u školu i morao sam podržavati njihovo školovanje. Da bi nakon stvarno jedno 5-6 godina patnje na Novom Zelandu odlučio da se preselim u Hrvatsku. Svake 2 godine smo dolazili u Hrvatsku i ja sam shvatio da se bolje osjećam. I preselio sam se krajem 2016. Kupili smo kuću u Samoboru i tu trenutno živimo. Nažalost, Samobor je bio prvi grad u Hrvatskoj koji je dobio 5G, a imaju i takozvani seoski Wi-Fi koji je isto značajan izvor zračenja. Znači, nakon nekih 9 mjeseci do godinu dana počeli su simptomi da se pojačavaju. Ja sam pokušavao sa liječnicom opće medicine da, kako bi rekao, da dobijem neko bolovanje jer nisam mogao funkcionirati. Otišao sam u London kod jedne liječnice koja mi je pomogla sa glavoboljem. Ja trenutno sad više nemam glavobolje. Jedino od simptoma što je ostalo to su jako zujanje. Znači, to nije tinnitus, to je po meni zujanje u glavi koje je nekad nesnosno. Budim se u neko doba noći i vrlo mi je teško zaspati. Tako da zapravo sam umoran. U Hrvatskoj sam pokušavao izmijeniti neke informacije koje sam imao dostupne, kao što je izvještaj Austrijske liječničke komore koja govori o tome kako tretirati pacijenta koji dođe sa simptomima EHS-a. Istu sam poslao Hrvatskoj liječničkoj komori, Hrvatskom liječničkom zboru i liječnici osobne medicine. Nisam imao nikakav odgovor na taj dokument.
To je bilo 2018. Čuljak kaže da će se seliti barem još jednom, no gdje još ne zna jer mu je teško uskladiti vlastite zdravstvene probleme s potrebama obitelji, odnosno školovanjem djece. U Hrvatskoj sve do danas elektrohipersenzibilnost nije prepoznata kao medicinski problem.
My experience with electromagnetic radiation coincides to a certain extent with the experience of Mr. Čuljak. In 2007, a base station was installed on the roof of the building where I worked at the time in the immediate vicinity of my workplace. A little further, at a distance of about 90 meters, another. In 2010, some symptoms started to appear, and it started with redness on the skin. At the beginning of 2011, I noticed a lump about 2 centimeters in size at the base of the neck on the left side. It is very interesting that during this summer, in a relatively short time during the annual vacation when I was away from the workplace, the lump completely disappeared. However, upon returning to the workplace, the situation began to deteriorate again and escalated in the spring of 2012 with the diagnosis of the high stage of malignant disease and serious heart problems. The chemotherapy treatment I went through only complicated the situation and left permanent harmful effects on the body. The change in life habits and the change in the location of the workplace, which moved me away from the base stations, proved to be important and even decisive. In the meantime, I came across an article in which Hrvatski Telekom informs us that it was during that time period from 2010 to 2012 that he worked on the introduction of the 4G mobile network in Croatia. And at the time of the escalation of my problems, he started commercial work in its entirety. Here 3 events coincide in time: the appearance of Mr. Čuljak's health problems, the escalation of my health problems, and the introduction of the 4G telecommunications network. Electromagnetic radiation is a natural phenomenon associated with the emission and transmission of energy through electromagnetic waves. Over time, living beings have adapted to natural electromagnetic radiation. But let us now consider another aspect related to electromagnetic sensitivity. Not rarely, we witness unusual situations like these where airplanes release large amounts of small particles containing metals into the atmosphere. Some people are so sensitive that the very presence of these substances in the atmosphere causes certain effects in their body, where electromagnetic fields play a significant role. This kind of haze is one of the effects present after airplanes release small particles into the atmosphere. Small particles attract water vapor from the atmosphere, and electromagnetic fields play an important role in the further development of events. This entails the following consideration. In order to be efficient, the transformer must have an iron core which increases the intermediate induction between the primary and secondary circuits of the transformer. In nature, we have the sun as a powerful source of electromagnetic radiation and the atmosphere, and when metals that do not belong there are found in the atmosphere, we can expect a change influence of the sun on human beings. Furthermore, when other sources of electromagnetic radiation are found in the environment as a result of human activity, the situation becomes more complicated. By mistake, such disturbances can easily be attributed to meteoropathy. On the left, we have an illustration that refers to a document from the US Naval Medical Research Institute and draws attention to the numerous health problems associated with electromagnetic radiation. On the right is the title page of that document. The bibliography includes more than 2,000 works with previously recognized biological phenomena and clinical manifestations attributed to radiofrequency electromagnetic radiation. And there are many recognized biological effects. The American scientist Alan Frey discovered in 1962 that electromagnetic fields can cause certain auditory effects in humans. He discovered that electromagnetic fields in both healthy and deaf people can cause the sensation of hearing by stimulating either a nerve or bone tissue near the ear. Experiments conducted by scientist James Lean in 2022 confirmed this observation and expanded knowledge. The same scientist published a scientific paper in 1969 on the influence of microwaves and radiofrequency energy on the frog's central nervous system. It was shown that the generation of radiofrequency pulse synchronized with the R wave of the ECG resulted in tachycardia, arrhythmias, as well as cardiac arrest. Another type of experiment from 1975 showed that permeability of the blood-brain barrier changes under the influence of radiofrequency electromagnetic fields. This means that under the influence of electromagnetic fields, substances that do not belong there can enter the brain tissue and can harm the nervous system. For example, small particles that enter the bloodstream through inhalation can easily reach the brain tissue and such conditions. Exposure to electromagnetic fields can also cause changes in blood cells. Here we see the consequences of exposure for three situations, depending on the type and intensity of the electromagnetic field, as well as the duration of the exposure. On a website dedicated to US military veterans who were exposed to microwave electromagnetic radiation during their service, we find a whole range of diseases and symptoms associated with exposure to electromagnetic radiation. It is important to take into account that such problems are considered a microwave injury that is not visible while the person looks healthy, which creates additional problems in diagnosis and treatment. Basically, what could be said, why do we react to electromagnetic fields? Electromagnetic waves affect our body, our brain, our heart, our reproductive organs, and all other parts of the body. Electromagnetic waves have energy, and some of that energy is absorbed by our body. Energy has the ability to do work. Work done can drive change. Change means breaking the balance. Disrupted body balance means a health problem. So, doesn't this close the circle from cause to effect? Thank you for your attention.